How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age. Welcome to 2023. We're a few days in, and it's already making itself memorable. Okay, today we are doing another Lost Heroes.
You missed Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. The holidays were particularly packed this year. I mean, with the holidays being on the weekends, I miss Christmas. Also, I wanted to put some more time into this video to make sure that I covered this right, because I've never covered a team quite like this before, and I wanted to make sure that I did it in a way that it felt proper. I think I did a pretty good cover of this. Now, this isn't the first time I've mentioned teams. I did mention teams early in my videos where I did the top teams in Marvel and DC. I think I might have actually done heroes and villains on that. But I've never gone into the great details of a particular team before. So we're going to have to reserve judgment of what people think of this video. I am doing the Thunder Agents. Now, the Thunder Agents came out in the 60s, where science and technology were starting to grab people in a way that it really hadn't done before, and the Thunder Agents leaned heavily into that. Now, there are a lot of influences from the other comic books at the time that these people take their powers from, but they took from them without outright stealing from them. So you can see that they were inspired, not stolen.
A little from column A, a little from column B.
Well, you know what they say, good artists create and great artists steal. Anyways, you're definitely going to see where you got where they got their inspiration from.
Request video?
This is a request video. It is up here. I have to apologize that it took so long to get to this. This wasn't a small video for me to do. So, we're covering the Thunder Agents. We're covering... Thunder Agents were interesting. Back in the 60s, the team format was just starting to kick off. Like with the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the Avengers, Justice League. So, the teams weren't done quite as much before as it is now, as it was at that part in the Bronze Age, and it's even more commonplace now. But back when these teams started to form, it was probably more common to have singular individuals that later would form up into teams, so that when the team presents itself, you already know everybody. Of course, Fantastic Four and X-Men being exceptions to that. They just started off as a team. But usually, because if you just form a team right off the blue, you have to spend a number of comic books explaining who the people are instead of just getting right into it. Now, the intro is going to get really bogged down if we don't hurry up and get on with this. So, just about everything I need to cover of the Thunder Agents are in there. When they started, the publications over the years, even the acronym Thunder, and I covered the Agents and a Thunder Squad that was part of the organization. Now, like I said, everything that I think was pertinent to cover, I did cover. If there's anything I missed that people think should be included in some way, we can always do a follow-up to this video. So, let's go ahead and get into
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age, Bronze Age. What are we doing here?
Bronze Age video. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, Thunder Agents. Thunder, the higher United Nations Defense Enforcement Reserves, first appeared in Thunder Agents #1 in 1965. The original publisher is Tower Comics, and they're created by Wally Wood and Len Brown. Now, I'm not going to review the very first issue of Thunder Agents like I normally do in these reviews, because that comic is big. It is not a small comic. So what we're going to do is we're briefly going to go over each of the members of the Thunder Agents, which started off as Dynamo, No Man, and Mentor, and then we're going to cover the other agents that have become part of the team. So we'll briefly cover over each individual. We'll go over their origin, and we'll basically just talk about who they are, what they did. The interesting thing about the Thunder Agents is they weren't published by one company. A number of publishers have taken them over, and the reason why is kind of weird. When the Thunder Agents first debuted in 1965, they didn't do their copywriting properly. What I mean by that is between the time of 1923 and 1977, there was a certain way of doing copyright laws where your copyrights either had to be on the cover or the first page, and they had to be visual and easy to identify. Now, Tower Comics wanted to do something interesting where they put their copyrights into the artwork. Now, something like that would be acceptable today, but not when they came out. Since their copyrights weren't easily identified, the Thunder Agents immediately went into public domain. So anybody could take them over, and that's why so many different publications have done them over the years. So Tower Comics never actually owned the rights to the Thunder Agents or the ones that premiered in their comics because of the copyright issue. Now, Tower Comics also did Undersea Agent, and they did the copyrights properly for him, so that was pretty much the first character that they were able to claim ownership of. Now, I'm not sure if Undersea Agent is part of the Thunder Agents, but I will look that up and see if we are going to cover him. The Thunder Agents aren't the only part of the Thunder Agents, though. Also appearing in the first issue along with the Thunder Agents was the Thunder Squad. Now, the Thunder Squad was kind of a backup to the Thunder Agents, and we will briefly go over the Thunder Squad and the members of the Thunder Squad as well, because we're covering a team and we want to make sure that we include all the main players, the movers and shakers, and then we can briefly talk about the arch nemesis. I'm not going to go too far into the spin-off comic books that were under one character. I mean, I know Dynamo had a couple of his own singular issues, which is kind of interesting because normally when you have teams, you have your individual comics and then you decide to make them a team like Marvel and DC did. They had their individuals, which would later form a team, the Justice Society or Justice League, and the Avengers. Now, the Thunder Agents didn't go on for very long. They had their 20 issues. The interesting thing I found out about this is the Thunder Agents don't have any innate powers of their own. They possess equipment that gives them their powers. So, in the 1960s, science and technology was really starting to pique people's interests, and you can see that with the heroes that were the most popular at the time. So an idea like this wasn't too far out of the norm, but with DC already being as popular as it was, and the newly dubbed Marvel Comics, which timely became Atlas, and Atlas became Marvel, with the writing of Stan Lee, the Thunder Agents didn't stand a chance. But we will briefly cover this team because it's interesting enough that I thought the review of this would be fun. So let's go ahead and start covering these heroes so you can get a bit of an idea of what the Thunder Agents were all about. Okay, not wanting to get too bogged down with what this video is most likely going to be anyways, we're going to go over a quick little history lesson of the Thunder Agents and the comic books that covered them over the years. The Thunder Agents were first done by Tower Comics in 1985, and they stopped producing Thunder Comics in the Thunder Agents in 1969. And they would go into limbo until 1981, where they were picked up by JC Comics, and they would, they put out 2 issues, and then their storyline would conclude in Blue Ribbon comic books, which were part of Archie's comic books Red Circle comic. I have mentioned that before. Now, L.J. Miller and Son did get some rights for the Thunder Agents, but they didn't produce any new material. What they would do is they were a UK comic, and they would do uncolorized comics from America. So they often did some of the reproductions of Thunder Agents. After that, 1983 Texas comic books would take over, and that's when the agent Vulcan would be introduced, as through Texas comic books. They didn't do very much. They would be picked up in 1984 by Deluxe comic books, and some of the best artists of that time would have a hand in that. And some of these included George Perez and Steve Ditko. And if you've watched me do anything with Marvel Comics in general, I've mentioned Steve Ditko before. In 1987, Solson Publications would pick up the Thunder Agents and do a 4-issue limited series. Now, in the 1990s, Rob Liefeld. Oh, we're not gonna get into my issues with Rob Liefeld. That's a story for another time. Now, in the 1990s, he said that he did have the rights for the Thunder Agents, which was kind of funny because they were public domain. And he started putting out ads for the Thunder Agents comic books in 1996. After that, in the early 2000s, the DC Comics would pick up the Thunder Agents, and let's see, it said it was under a new license, but they would do a number of comic books with the DC emblem on them. And the last stop for the Thunder Agents would actually be in IDW. They picked up the Thunder Agents in 2012, and that was the last thing that was done for them, with an 8-part miniseries. The Thunder Agents haven't been seen since then, but they are out there for anybody to use. I would say maybe Dynamite should pick them up, but Dynamite does Golden Age heroes. But they are sitting in the public domain, and they are for anybody to use if they want to. Let's see, they changed up a couple of members. They say that the new Lightning is African. They did a series in 2011, which lasted 6 issues, and then their 8-part series, which was in 2012. So, with the interesting cast and them being public domain figures, they're ripe for anybody to use. I mean, it's 2023 now. Hey, maybe they're set for a revival, but there needs to be an interest before a spark like that's going to happen, though. We are going to start off with the first of the Thunder Agents introduced, Dynamo. Thunder Agent. He is Leonard Brown, and he appears as the first agent in Thunder Agent number 1. He is given the Thunder Belt, and the Thunder Belt grants him a massive amount of strength. And testing it out, he punches through a brick wall that is able to withstand an artillery shell. So it's not your standard brick wall. Now, there is a limit on the Thunderbelt, and I will read it off the page right here. You must never use the power belt for more than a few minutes at a time. Why? What will happen? Since your body's mass is increased, the drain on the energy is enormous. It can be extremely dangerous. If you exert yourself for a prolonged period of time, you may even be risking your life. So there's essentially a time limit on the belt, and it goes to the amount of endurance that he has. Now, as it goes with anything else in writing, a time limit is usually based on the person who is writing the story. At times, they will be able to use it longer. At times, it will be shorter. Now, in his first appearance, he goes up against a number of armored individuals who he does seem to be getting the upper hand at first. But the longer these guys with the armored suits are able to withstand more damage than the average person, and as the fight prolongs, he starts to lose his energy because there is a time limit on the belt. Now, possibly in later stories, he would be able to use it longer as the more he becomes acclimated to the belt. But in here, with the number of individuals he had to fight and the fact that there are armored foes, he does get overwhelmed and beaten, and the Thunder Belt is taken from him. And this is also where we will meet one of the nemesis who will come back later. It is a female, let's see, meanwhile, in the remote lands, Iron Maiden. I couldn't remember her name at first. She is someone who will play parts in, more of the episodes. But he does lose his belt, and he's not going to reveal how it works. But because of him losing his belt, it will bring us the introduction of the Thunder Squad, who I will be going over later in this video. The next one we will get to is Agent No Man. Now, No Man is Dr. Dunn, and I think his name is actually kind of clever. This professor who's got an ailing and crippling body decides that he wants to transfer his consciousness into a robot body, which the scientist that works with him, he says, it will mean immortality if successful, but even if it does succeed, I know I will cease being human, but I am an old man now, and this body of mine cannot survive much longer anyways. Even if the experiment is a failure, I won't have lost much. Now, I do think it's clever that his name is No Man, because he is no longer a man, a human body inside of a mechanized unit. A lot like Vision from Marvel, but the ability of No Man is if one of the robot bodies is damaged or on the verge of being destroyed, he can transfer his consciousness into another one of the bodies. As you can see, there's a number of them here. He's also given an invisibility cloak, which allows him to be a spy above any other. Now, in the first one that we're dealing with is the mighty Dynamo, and he has these henchmen called submen that he's discovered underground. Now, there is the chemical works factory is under attack by the submen, so No Man heads out in his it looks like a rocket-powered car, and you can see that there's two of them riding out, which is actually good, because if something were to happen to the first android body, he'd have another one there. So the submen attack the factory, and he goes in there. Now, you can see that he has got great fighting prowess inside of this super suit. Now, I don't know if that's due to the brain or the android's body or a combination of the two, but he does seem to have a great ability at fighting. It beats off the submen. Now, he gets some coating on him, which makes him moderately visible and gives the mighty Demo a chance to strike and attack him. Now, he says, let's see, I switched bodies just in time. The first one is just scrap now. I'd better get in there quick and retrieve the invisibility cloak. Which, yeah, that's the only disadvantage of that, is if there wasn't another robotic body nearby, anybody could have gotten this invisibility cloak, and then his effectiveness as a spy wouldn't be as good. Well, I mean, but Demo does get away and says that he's going to come back with more submen, but that is the introduction to No Man, a very smart scientist whose brain powers probably can't even be calculated by normal means inside of the android body, and his effectiveness is far beyond that of what you can expect. He doesn't take damage the way normal people would. He can probably stand up to severe colds and extreme heats, and he is capable to the point of the robotic body being capable. And being the 60s, well, I'm guessing in future stories with the more advancements in technologies, the robot bodies would become more adaptable and better at extreme conditions and just a better overall fighting unit. And now we get to Mentor. And of all the Thunder agents, I think that he might be by far one of the most powerful. What we find out is at the lead-in for this one, it says potential candidates for Thunder must meet the highest mental and physical standards in the world. Their backgrounds are intensely investigated. It is impossible for enemy agents to infiltrate Thunder. Or is it the enemy within? What we find out is, I don't see a first name, but his last name is Mr. Janus. And he shows that he's got the mental and physical capabilities to be a Thunder agent. But then we find out that he is working for the Warlord, which is the main antagonist in all these other comics. The Iron Maiden and the other one, they all work for the Warlord. So he's the main bad guy, and Janus talks to him directly. Now, he wants to ingratiate himself more to the higher-ups, to give himself above suspicion, and he puts on the helmet. And what we find out right away is it allows him to read minds. And then they say that there's a trouble with the computer, and he's able to figure out where the computer has troubles at by, well, I don't know how he figures out the trouble in the computer or anything, but it increases his mental capabilities. He's able to find it, and then I don't know how this guy tripping and falling was able to knock over this giant computer terminal, but then we see that he has this mental, I guess it's a mental force blast, which is able to upright the computer and put it back to where it was. Now, this did take an incredible strain on him to use that much energy, and he was about to collapse, so they take the helmet off, and he can't understand why he helped to save the scientist. He's like, why did I help him? I can't understand why I did something like this. Now, he talks to the Warlord, and he sets up a way to let the Warlord's agents and this giant monster into the building. So after he sabotages the security system, the Warlord's men comes in and Mr. Janus says, I'm going to help the men. So as he's putting on the helmet, it says, again, a strange transformation takes place. I have to help them. Stop the warlord. So suddenly, when he puts on the helmet, he actually becomes a good guy. So without the helmet, he's an enemy to Thunder, and with the helmet, he helps them. Now, he dispatches the men. He's doing a pretty good job dispatching them. As we've seen, he is a mentally and physically capable individual. And then he finds out that he is able to seize their minds. He's like, hold it right there. It works. I've seized their mind. The brainwaves from Janus drains the strength from the individuals. I'm getting stronger and they're getting weaker. Now I have the strength of 10 men. So he's able to not only read the minds, decipher what's going on with computers, become smarter, and has a force blast. He can steal the strength from individuals and increase his own strength by doing that. We see that his strength is increased as he takes down this behemoth. Let's see, I'm getting weak. There must be some way. If I can get near the Cobalt Dynamo, Dynamo is a different agent. Its radiation will destroy anything, and that's how he dispatches the monster. Now, in the end, let's see. There's nothing left. We're completely disintegrated. Oh, my head, what happened? If it weren't for you, Thunder, we would have been destroyed. How did these men and creature get in? I don't know what went wrong. I blacked out. If you fail me again, I will assure you the next blackout will be permanent. So, for some reason, when he puts the helmet on, he becomes a agent for Thunder who wants to help him instead of working against them. Now, Thunder Squad did appear in this first issue as well, but I want to go over the heroes that appeared in the first 20. So we'll go over Lightning and we'll go over Raven, and after that we'll go ahead and cover the Thunder Squad. So you can see, well, I wouldn't call them backup, I'd call them a help in a pinch. Now, the next hero that we would be introduced to is Lightning, and his name is Guy. Just Guy. He is the leader of the Thunder Squad, and this is a story that involves them. They get attacked by this villain called the Baron, and they're Nazis without saying that they're Nazis. I mean, just look at the symbol on their helmets. It's saying it without saying it. So apparently Thunder headquarters gets attacked, and even though No Man and Dynamo show up, who I rarely team up with Meteor, because he would have actually solved the whole problem, or Mentor, if he had showed up. But they don't get there fast enough, and they make off with some important documents, and the Thunder Squad says it's up to them. So the scientist pulls out what is known as a speed inducer beam rifle. It increases a person's speed many times. However, because of a certain side effect, we believe that continued use of this device may shorten a person's life. We must ask for volunteers. So they have this rifle that can speed and make you fast. I believe it's up to about 100 times faster. But every time you lose it, it does shorten your life. So the more you use it, the shorter your life will be. So they recommend not using it very often. So they are taking on the Baron's agents, and they do all get knocked out, and they take the Thunder Squad except for Guy. They leave him behind. Guy wakes up in Thunder headquarters, and the scientist says, I shall give you a weapon that will enable you to defeat the Baron. Put on this suit. This suit has its own speed inducer beam system. It's also designed with the standard speeds of over 100 times that achieved by the fastest human. And then he talks about giving him goggles, but he says this: But of course, because of the beam's life-shortening effects, which is especially detrimental at higher speeds, we cannot tell you to use this weapon. We can only ask that you volunteer. However, I felt, say no more. I accept. Good. You are known as a Thunder agent, codename Lightning. Hey, Lightning and Thunder. Clever. No, it does say that every time he uses this, he is costing his own life, and the higher he goes, the more it will take off. So, he definitely wants to use it sparingly. And since it is taking off his own life, and it is up to him, he can only volunteer to use it. They're not going to force him to use it. Not like with the other agents, there's no, side effects to the devices that they have. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how often I would want to use something like that. Now, they only do show 4 Thunder agents, or 4 Thunder Squad members in this, which would now be 3 if Guy now becomes an agent. In the first story there was 5, but one of them, his name was Egghead. I don't know how effective he would have been on this particular mission. But that's how Lightning becomes created. His former squad member now becomes an agent, but every time he uses the power granted to him, it costs him life force. So, finding a way to counteract that. And that might be why in the later comics there is an African-American Lightning, because Guy probably got to the point where he couldn't use the suit anymore because he either died or came to the end of his life, so you would need someone else to take over the role of Lightning. Now, in issue 7, they actually kill off Meteor, and I think it's just as well. There's not a whole lot of conflict with the range of his powers. So he gets killed in number 7, and they introduce a new agent in issue 8. His name would be Raven, and he would be the flying expert, which I think is kind of weird because at the beginning you see the 3 agents testing out these jetpacks, and they're doing rather well. So why do you need a guy who can fly if they're flying? Anyways, they want to test out this new suit that's been created that when you see it actually in action, he starts moving in ways that most people shouldn't be able to move in the air, even with a flight suit. And they want to get the Thunder Agent Thunder Squad member Weed a try at it. He does try, and he seems to be doing rather well at first, but then loses control and has to use a parachute to get down. And he says, "You'll have to get yourself another boy. I'm all right in a straight flight, but when it comes to fancy stuff, forget about it." So they find this guy, and let's see, he's an ex-trapezist artist, acrobat, gymnast, and a pioneer in skydiving, and they feel that he is the right guy for the suit because with the jetpacks, the Thunder Agents had limited maneuverability, but with this new suit, he'd be able to move, you'll see it, he'll move in ways that is not natural. So he's trying this thing out, and he doesn't want to be a part of the squad at first. This cape is great. It's just what I need. When I become one of the highest paid independent agents in the world, or with it, I can become one of the highest paid independent agents in the world. I must have it. I'll wait for the right moment to sneak off with it. The Warlord should pay a pretty penny for it. And as we know, the Warlord is probably the main antagonist for the Thunder Agents. Well, some flying units come in, coincidentally, and the Thunder Agents start to battle them. And then we see all the ways that Raven can move. I mean, he's throwing punches in the air, throwing guys over him, which is kind of a weird thing to do because he's already in the air. And as he is taking them out, No Man says, He's fantastic. Am I glad to see he's on our side? The guy's phenomenal. And then one of the Warlord's agents take off the goggles, and I'm not quite sure what the goggles have to do with the flight, but it affects his eyes, and he loses controls and falls out of the air, and lightning saves him. You're safe now, Raven. That was a close one. Without my dark glasses, I'm lost. And they're talking about, hey, you're one of us when we stick together. And in the last panel we see, I must have been crazy to think of double-crossing these guys. They're the greatest. I'm proud to stick with them as a Thunder agent. Now, some of these guys will go on to get their own comics, and they don't always work as a team. Sometimes they only need one. Nomad and Lightning has had a number of stories where it was just them. So sometimes they work independently, sometimes they work as a team. Raven gets added on as the last new member. Like I said, I don't know the deal with Undersea Agent. But let's go ahead and cover the 5 members in the first issue of the Thunder Squad, which we know Guy would later become Lightning. Now, the Thunder Squad gets wrapped up pretty succinctly in this. So, we'll go over what starts off to be the 5 members of the Thunder Squad. They are deployed to help rescue Dynamo, who has been captured. Nomad actually comes in on this adventure to help them out too. I like the plane. I really do. I think it's an awesome design. I don't know how practical it is, but I think it looks pretty awesome. So here it says each member of the squad is a well-trained, highly skilled specialist. Guy, leader of the squad, who we know is later become Lightning. Dynamite, weapons man. The female, Kitten, technical device expert. Weed, locksmith, can get into any place. Egghead, super brilliant strategist. And that pretty much wraps up the Thunder Squad. The Thunder Squad would probably be I guess you could call them the B team. Or it would be a team that you would send out when you don't actually need the Thunder agents. But these guys are highly trained operatives. So when they work together, they're a highly effective unit. I mean, you've got every guy from a locksmith, weapons expert, an egghead. So I guess when the members of the agents aren't needed, you don't need to knock down a brick wall, you just need to infiltrate the facility, you call on the Thunder Squad. I don't think that the team rotates very much. I mean, it's like you have to trust the man next to you to know that you're going to get home alive, and they know each other pretty well. I think there was some dating in the group at one time. I'm not completely sure. I didn't get to read all of these. I read a number of them, but so that is the Thunder Squad along with the Thunder Agents, a highly trained, specialized group of individuals insured with destroying the Warlord and keeping the peace in, well, America more than anything else, it would certainly seem. So yeah, highly specialized task force. I can see why a number of different publications would pick them up with the right artists and the right writers. This could go on to become extremely popular, and with the age of superheroes that we're getting into now, with superheroes taking off to an even higher caliber than they've really ever had before, a resurrection of the Thunder Agents could prove to be rather popular. But somebody has to remember them. They're sitting in limbo right now. But if comic book series, TV show, movie were to come out, I think that would pique my interest enough to give them a view. So that is the Thunder Agents and the Thunder Squad. Well, that does it for this video. I hope I covered everything. I hope you liked it. I don't mind venturing a little bit out of the golden age every now and then to cover something like this. There are still lots of golden age heroes that I haven't, some I don't even know of, some I've only recently just become aware of. But there's a lot more golden age videos to review. If you have a request, go ahead and send that in. I know somebody asked about more golden age teams. I will look into that. But besides the Justice Society and the All-Star Squadron, I think most teams happen to be military based. So, until next time, I'll be seeing you.